I want to place on the record of the House an extension of my sympathies to the family of the late Garda Adrian Donoghue, to his wife Caroline DeLucre, who hails from my constituency. I had the opportunity to visit the family home yesterday evening, and I had the opportunity to attend the funeral today. And I think it's clear that certainly this House and the entire Irish population are at one in expressing their sympathies and saying to the perpetrators of this dreadful crime that it's not acceptable and that every resource of the state should and will be put in place to bring these people to justice. Now, I'm deeply disappointed, Minister, that you have sought to complicate that issue with the motion that's before the House. I want to compliment Niall Collins for putting the motion down in the first instance. I want to compliment him for resisting your cynical attempts to utilise this crime as a means of getting this debate off the agenda. It was, I believe, a cynical attempt by a minister who has lost touch, not just with the Irish people, but the entire force of An Garda Síochána. I've spoken to many Gardaí over the last number of days. They didn't want the two things connected. You succeeded in doing that, Minister. And they wanted this debate to go ahead. And if you were genuine in your desire to change it, Minister, what you would have done was deferred the closure of the Garda stations. But you know, you presented this arrogant Al approach. Fianna Fáil are wrong, they're responsible for everything, and let's dump on them again. Well, the people have seen through it this time, Minister. And your attempt at cynically connecting these two events will, I believe, come back to haunt you in a way that you deserve to be haunted in relation to this particular issue. You've sought to justify the closures of Garda stations in rural areas by suggesting that you're implementing somehow smart policing. Do you realise, Minister, how hurtful the use of that word is to the men and women who have served this country from the foundation of the state? Was their policing not smart? Was it somehow thick policing? What are you at, Minister, using that kind of offensive language to suggest that you now have some smart way of doing it? Your smart policing in the rural areas that I'm well familiar with, Minister, and you've sought to utilise this notion that somehow the closure of the station gets the guards off their soft chairs and out of the warm confines of these rural stations.
1 minute, Deputy.
Well, rural policing and the policing that has centred around those stations has meant the guard comes to the station for an hour, does his business, does his administration work or her administration work, and then they start to circulate in the area. Now, your idea is to get rid of that, and you somehow believe that they're going to be able to resolve the policing matters by driving through the area. Minister, this is the first step towards the absolute urbanisation of An Garda Síochána, because you full well know that as pressure comes on in the urban areas, the guards that were assigned to those rural areas won't get to go out in the morning because they won't be scheduled or rostered to open the station. And ultimately, there will be no rural policing. There may not be the available resources to provide the cars, and you were slow enough in providing the cars that your colleague beside you has made such a wonderful delivery. It was great that you managed to find the resources when you came to office. You found the resources when the guards showed you up, when they started to talk openly that they weren't in a position to do the most basic of rural policing.
Thank you, David.
And again, Minister, you'll smile. You're okay. You'll go back to your leafy suburbs in South County Dublin, when there are men and women, elderly and young, living in absolute fear because you have shut out on them, you have closed those doors, and you have switched off the light in many rural communities from tomorrow night on. And I think it'll come back to haunt you, and it deserves to, Minister.
I now call Deputy